Hey, welcome to Tone Talk with Mark Uzansky and Dave Friedman. Hope everybody's doing great. It's episode 152. We've got a fantastic producer, musician, guitar player, Andy Sneap. How are you, Andy?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm awesome. Awesome. Thanks for joining us.
That's all right.
Appreciate you coming on the show, agreeing. You're a busy man.
Yeah, we finally managed to get it scheduled, didn't we? It's taken a little working out.
No, it's great, great. I know, but you've just been on the road, and you're currently on tour with Judas Priest, and then you're in producing. So yeah,
All my plates spinning really, but yeah, I mean we've got a day off today, so it's kind of worked out well for a Friday. So yeah,
perfect,
beautiful,
yeah. And you're perfect. Well, we've had Richie on before.
Yeah, he says hello.
Yeah,
yeah,
hello.
I will. Yeah,
Richie's great. Really great guy. Actually, I saw you guys down here in Miami, and of course I didn't know you then. I would have said hi, but I saw Richie then. We went back to like the back room. That was Glenn. Glenn was there as well.
I think that was the start of a run, wasn't it? I think we were rehearsing down in Florida, weren't we? When we started off.
Yeah, that might have been the first show.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, which I think wasn't that the run where Richie had the heart problem?
It was, wasn't
it? Yeah, it was that first run back. Was it the first sort of after COVID? Was it that run?
I can't remember. It almost feels like it was pre-COVID. Almost maybe it was after. I don't even remember. To be honest. It feels like
I can't. Yeah, we lost a bunch of years there somewhere in there. You know, it's just like
for a while, didn't it?
Yeah,
just looking back at that period now, isn't it? Just even though it was only a couple of years ago, it was such a strange thing. Everything just as it happened to everyone, it just stopped for everyone. I was actually for me as a producer, I was actually super busy because everyone suddenly wanted to make albums, and
right.
And we were I was doing the Accept album actually, not the last one, the one before, To Me to Die, I think it was. And I actually had to fly home when lockdown happened in England, and I flew home into the UK the first day of lockdown, and it was like the zombie apocalypse when I got into London. It was,
no one there.
Absolutely no one there. Yeah, trying to get home, and then we went into lockdown, and then me and Wolf started figuring out ways we could still work, and I think it was Cubase where you could work it remotely, and that didn't really work very well. So we started doing the audio movers thing with Zoom and and TeamViewer, so I could operate the computer in Nashville and drop files into Dropbox, and we found a way around the whole thing. But yes, it was a good time. Yeah,
it was fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah, what a pain in the ass.
Absolutely horrible.
Send me the files. Oh, I'll send you back the files. Oh fuck. Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank God we can all get in the room together again.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
That's good. So, and you mentioned that also you're going to be after this tour, you're going to be producing. Did you mention?
Don't say it.
Oh,
yeah, that's a secret. So yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. Oh, I didn't know. Okay, all right. I didn't say it.
No.
So
I didn't say anything.
Say it. Yeah, but yeah, I've got a project in my time off, just in August, that has been on the cards for a long time. But
leave it to me to fuck it up.
Yeah, well, you didn't fuck it up. It's all right.
You just came that close.
Oh, I'm so glad you threw that out there. All
yeah, right. But that will get announced soon. But yeah, I mean, it's with the whole Priest thing. I kind of get an idea where the windows are that I can work sort of in between. So I mean, I was saying this the other day that last year, I did Accept, Saxon, and Priest all at the end of the year. And by that time, being in the studio for that amount of time and being focused every day, 12, 14 hours a day, it absolutely kills you, to be honest. You're so burnt by the end of it that for me to be able to sort of jump out of that producer seat and come out here on the road and play as a guitar player, it mentally sort of recharges you a little bit, really, because you're just doing something different, but something still high profile in the music business.
Yeah.
And it makes it interesting to get back into the studio. You're not stuck in the same old rut of Groundhog Day of, oh, right, we've got this way of working, or that, there's new things to use, and you've got, you've forgotten little things and you're trying new things. It's a bit more inspiring to go back into the studio after not being in there for 6 months. So at this stage of my career, it's kind of, it's a good way of working for me, really. And because the touring's so far, worked out so far in advance, you pretty much know 4 to 6 months in advance where you're going to be, the windows where you can do an album or do a mix. So it's worked out okay, really.
Right. That's cool. And you enjoy actually being on the road and kind of going from city to city. And
yeah, I mean, they're a good bunch of lads, and we all get on great, and the crew are great as well. So there's no egos at all, believe it or not. It's out of all the bands I've ever played with, this is the easiest bunch of people. I mean, it's probably because the financial situation is a lot easier in a band this size. No one, no one's, in other bands I've been in, people are having to take time off work, or they're leaving families for a certain amount of time and not earning enough to get by. So that's always a big issue. But with something like Priest, it's such a big machine and well organized, and everyone knows their place. It's easy. It really is easy touring at this level.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it's
a lot better than a Sprinter van.
Well, yeah, I've slept in the back of the van many times, so I'm certainly not doing that these days.
Yeah, I bet.
That's great.
No,
so,
fuck that.
Did you start out on guitar?
Yeah, I when I was at school, I formed my first band, Sabbath, when I was 15 with the other guys. Waited until I was 18 to sign the contract. We literally had to wait until I was 18, and then by September that year, we were out in Germany. That would have been 1987. We're out in Germany, in Hanover, recording the first album, and by that time we'd been in Kerrang, done Radio 1 sessions, quite a lot of stuff really. So that band did all right for two, 3 albums. And then by sort of 1990, 91, we'd split up, and I was sort of falling into the producer role after that, purely because I'd always had an interest in the studio, and I'd been fascinated, and I'd got my own little 8-track reel-to-reel at the rehearsal rooms, and I was demoing local bands. So it was an easy way to make money on the side, really. So yeah, I was doing that, and I ended up working at a bigger 24-track studio in Nottingham. I blagged my way into that job, lied my way into it. And I ended up working with Colin Richardson, who'd done Machine Head and Napalm Death, Fear Factory. I ended up engineering for him on a few projects at that studio. And then by the end of 96, I ended up working with Colin in San Francisco to start off with on the second Machine Head record, engineering for him on that. And then we went down to LA to Larrabee Studios to mix that. So we had quite, 2 months out in the States working on that. And then I met Borry, who was at Century Media at the time. I met the guys from Metal Blade. I knew Monty, who was at Roadrunner, and I started doing all the bands for sort of Century Media, Roadrunner, the upcoming bands, the starter bands on those labels. And it slowly, how it is in the music business. You do something, you're reliable, you're on time. It comes in within budget. It's getting good reviews. You become the guy of the moment doing that sort of stuff, and that was kind of me in the early 2000s. I was getting the Trivium albums. I was getting given the Killswitch Engage albums. All the newer bands that are on Roadrunner. I was getting that sort of work, and that led on to sort of Megadeth, and obviously I was doing Testament, Exodus, all those guys. So it just kept going really.
Just a snowball effect.
Yeah,
the name gets out there.
People in the business all talk to each other, and we all get to know each other. We're all on that sort of loop, aren't we? And we're all sort of in that common ground, really. So it's just kept going, and I ended up doing. Well, it's odd. I ended up doing Judas Priest through Miller from the band Creator. He was at an ESP dinner with Glenn back in, I think it was 2016 at the Frankfurt Music Messe. And he was chatting to Glenn saying, who are you going to get to do your next record? And they were saying, probably, we might go back to Tom Allen. And Miller was pushing me because he knew what a big Judas Priest fan I was. And I just called management the next week saying, look, I understand my name's been thrown around for the album. And they said, well, come down to Glenn's. He only lives sort of 2.5 hours away from me. Just come down to Glenn's next week, have a chat with him, and see if you guys get on. So that's kind of what happened, really. I went down there, and there's Richie and Rob down there as well. And they suggested me working on, along with Tom, which I was fine about, because someone like Tom Allen, I'm not gonna turn down the chance of working with someone who's had that sort of experience. So
right,
yeah, we got on like a house on fire. I had a really, really good time making the Firepower album, and
I love that album. I really do love that album.
It's a good sounding record. You got great guitar sounds.
Yeah, good, thanks.
Fantastic.
And then,
Fantastic.
then I got when obviously we knew of Glenn's health problems while we were doing it. They'd known for a long time, and he I basically got asked 3 weeks before the US tour started. Do you think you can step in and help out? And I was just like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. I wasn't really match fit as a guitar player. I was still playing, but I wasn't thinking I was going to get asked to do that. So I had a lot of work to try and get everything in my head. That when you're having to learn such a vast amount of stuff in a short amount of time, it's everything sort of it gets a little confusing.
Absolutely, your head is swimming.
Yeah, I mean, so
you're getting parts mixed up from song to song, and
well, a lot of the parts are in similar sort of shapes and places, and even people would say, "Well, the songs." It's like, yeah, my hands don't know the songs, So
you got to get under your fingers, yeah.
Yeah, and you've got to do it so it's in the muscle memory, really. And it's not. I always say this, that it's not a case of just getting up there and playing Breaking the Law in your local pub. You're on a big stage with in-ears. You've got an aircraft light in your eyes. You've got 6,000 to 10,000 people watching you or filming you, ready for the first mistake.
Posted on YouTube. Yeah, exactly.
Straight away. Yeah. And everyone's like, who's this guy with short hair?
Yeah, he's not Glenn.
That's it. Yeah, and I get it. All the fans want to see Glenn. Of course they do. I'm a fan. I was. You understand. So I've always taken the whole thing as people see you. It's funny. People see you as an object. They see you as something that they can criticize and comment on. Once you're out there in the public domain, you're thrown to the lions, really, into the internet lions. So you sort of have to have a thick skin and just sort of think, well, I'm up there doing the job they've asked me to do. And that's the way I've always looked at it. I'm going up there. I'm just filling that part of the stage. Trying to keep the ball rolling. Really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean,
really.
I think you guys sound fantastic.
We're sounding really tight. I mean, I was just watching some footage from last night actually, and it's really locked in. So it's it's good. It's great fun as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember the first time seeing I think the Richie's first tour.
Yeah.
And I over the years had seen Priest many times.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, how's this guy gonna be?
Yeah.
And you know what? I was like, wow, he breathes life into the band.
Yeah.
I mean, time,
Yeah. I mean, it's I think the band will admit that it was getting a little bit tired, actually. I mean, I remember, I think it was on the Nostradamus tour I saw them, actually. They did, I think, Download, and it was, it wasn't the best time I've seen Priest. But I'm a massive fan of them. I mean, obviously what Ken and Glenn brought to the table back in the day, it was phenomenal. I said to KK a few years ago, actually, the Us Festival, the footage, the bonus disc that came with Screaming for Vengeance. I said, every band should be made to watch this. This is what a heavy metal band should be. And to me, even with Maiden and all the other bands growing up, to me, Priest were the metal band for me. It was just
and that Us Festival footage, it's so great. It's so classic, epic. It really is.
Yeah.
he comes out. Well, of course, he still does it, but he comes out with the motorcycle. The whole thing is just so great.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah. So, and then the latest album is great. I forget the name of the album. Sorry.
Invisible Shield.
Invisible Shield. Yeah. I mean, I listened to it recently. It's great. It sounds awesome.
I didn't get it yet. I didn't get it yet. I need to.
Oh, really?
I still buy stuff.
Good. Yeah, out there. Yeah.
I don't know. You know, after working in this industry for so long, it's like I just see how everyone gets fucked.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like
sorry, go on.
I do my part to
at least contribute. I do think those older guys, and actually the rock crowd in general do, you know, especially, you know, the people of our age do still like to have the physical product. There's, you know, you see it with the vinyl sales now, and I think that there's something said for actually holding the record and having a physical product type thing. Yeah. And we still sort of, you know, those old days of going out and I used to go to record fairs in Sheffield every Saturday, and you know, if something had a good album cover, I'd buy it. I'd be very disappointed quite regularly, but the album cover would sell it to me, you know. Yeah. So I'm sort of old school as well. I like to actually have a physical copy of the album rather than, you know, stream it or download it.
Yeah.
So how are you listening to it, Dave? You listen to
well, I mean, variety of ways, but I mean, sometimes I'll download something if I want it instantly, but I'll pay for it.
Buy it. You'll
buy it. And then other times I'll buy the vinyl. Mm. So
I need to get a vinyl. I need to get a vinyl set up for my house.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I have a whole bunch of albums. I used to have it, but then we changed the setup.
My son got into vinyl. He's like 13. He's like way into it.
Yeah.
And like he's, you know, he loves to get the album and look at the cover and I watch him doing it and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Okay, great.
Yeah, it's a good feeling, right?
Do it.
I don't think vinyl sounds better. I think people get confused. I think people like the experience more of sitting down there with you know, the cover, reading through it, you know, the whole experience of hearing the needle go on the deck and, you know, 22 minutes per side, you know, you don't skip through it. You're sort of forced to listen to it almost. I think people like that. It takes them back to a time when they found music exciting, you know, when they were discovering music a lot of the time. But I think I'd never say it sounds better than what's, you know, what we can create digitally now. But
you wouldn't say it sounds warmer or like an album has
it's got less top end. Whether that's warmer, you know, that's probably the thing. I mean, obviously there's a bit more, you know, a certain type of compression to vinyl, and there's a quality to vinyl that as soon as it's put on vinyl, it takes me back to the 80s when I was listening to music.
Right. So that's the thing. That's the thing. If you grew up on, say, an album that you had on vinyl in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
And then you later hear it on digital and you listen to it on digital for a while.
Yeah.
And then go back to the vinyl.
It's kind of a surprise.
You're like, oh, there it is. That's the sound I remember.
Well,
that's because you're used to it.
It is the sound you remember, isn't it? Because that's how you envisage the album. Also, you know, and also you've got to think that when we were recording on tape as well, tape used to, you know, tape brings everything into that zone that was almost better for vinyl in a way. You haven't got the super sub lows, you haven't got the super highs. It brings it all together. And you know, with vinyl, everything from sort of 100 hertz down is, you know, you're rolling off on the real super subs, and everything from 100 hertz is put into mono. It's got a certain process that you have to do to get it onto vinyl. So there's all that you know, gives it a certain quality. With digital, you've got a bit more of a free rein in a way with the whole spectrum, and it's certainly. Sonically, things are bigger on digital. Vinyl will give you a certain coloration, won't it? And that's what takes people back. And it takes me back when I've done something where I've been listening to it, like say for 3 months in the studio, and then I hear it on vinyl. It's like, I'm not going to get too picky about this because that's what vinyl does to it. It smashes it up a certain way. But people don't listen to it the same way that I'm listening to it because I'm so into the mix by that point. People are just really enjoying the songs and hearing a finished version of it. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely. When you're mixing and going, doing the final mix and also mastering, is it kind of with the intention that it's going to be listened to digitally as opposed to it's going to go to vinyl?
Yeah, I don't get hung up on how it's going to translate to vinyl, to be honest. I just, if you start worrying too much about every single format, you're going to be going around the houses on it. So I really try and do it to where I feel comfortable with it in the studio, and then, I'm done with it then.
It's probably more like, how does it sound on my phone on an MP3 right now?
Yeah, I mean, the phone's always the way.
Can I still hear the bass on the phone? Yes. Okay, great. I did a good job.
Yeah, I mean, the phone can freak you out sometimes. Things in the center of the mix can pop out a bit, and your cymbals are suddenly like killing you. And it's like, oh no, So I mean, you have to check it. Just make sure.
Absolutely, because the vast majority of people are consuming media off their phone.
Yeah,
and horrible.
Yeah, Instagram and everyone's watching videos on the phones now, aren't they? So it's we keep saying everyone's got a TV in the pocket now, so you've got to make sure it translates to a certain extent onto the phone.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It's always like certain stuff doesn't translate, like bass guitars and things like that. If the bass guitar has mid range in it, which it should.
Yeah.
Then it will translate because you can still hear the bass, but there's some bass sounds out there that people have done that on a phone there's no bass.
It's gone.
You don't hear the instrument.
I always try and get that bit around sort of 900 1K, that little sort of spike in there where it just sticks its nose out of the mix and gets a tiny bit annoying. But it also makes it, if you've got that in there, it makes the whole thing a little bit more aggressive. So if you get it right, I call it a sort of pig hunting for truffles. It's got that sort of that snort to it, And if you get that in there, then it can almost make the bass seem louder than it is because your ear sort of leans to it a little bit,
Yeah, it cuts through everything nicely, so you can actually hear it. Doesn't get buried.
Yeah,
which is great.
Yeah.
So for the most recent. I guess for the past two albums, I know we talked to Richie about what he used on the when he was touring and the album and stuff like. But just for I'm just curious about the last album that was used. How'd you guys record the guitars?
Yeah, it's a bit of a different process on this one, really. It was partly because of the amount of touring we were doing. We'd got going back a little bit more. We'd got the songs written before COVID. We got them all sort of in demo format, and then COVID hit, and it gave Richie a chance to sort of go back, sort of refine the middle 8 parts of the songs a little bit more, and we could sort of sit back and listen to what we got. And then when we got back together, I'm trying to think when it was. Obviously it wasn't straight after COVID. It was after. I think it was before the 50th anniversary run. We were rehearsing in Nashville, so we got together with Scott, me, Richie, and Scott in Nashville. Tracked the drums in Nashville, and then Richie tracked the guitars at his place, the bulk of them, and then I got the DIs off him with his sort of guide tone, so to speak, which was it was purely a guide tone what he sent me. So we went around the houses a little bit. I've got a load of Marshall stuff that's been modded. Dan Gower in the UK. I'm sure you know.
Dan?
Yeah, he's done a ton of stuff for me. My live rig is all Dan Gower modded 800s.
He was on the show.
Yeah, Dan's great. I mean, the good thing about Dan is he's a player as well. He's a great player. So I can go down to his place in Essex and sort of tell him what I'm hearing and what I want to hear out of an amp, and he understands when I'm talking about response out the amp and the attack, and you've got a guitar player really to sort of sit there and feel the response of an amp and know when it's not coming back at you right because you know what you're putting into it. So Dan's great like that. So I've got a couple of 800s. He's done that Killer Cali mod on a JMP that I've got. I've got a couple of plexes that is just sort of recapped and fine tuned for me. So we've got a couple of the old Marshalls working, the 800s. And I've got a 5150, the Fender EVH EL34 as well that we used. And that was really it, really. We were sort of swapping between those. There's the Plexi on it a little bit. I've actually got a little bit in places. I've got a little bit one of the old Gallion Kruger, the old, was it the ML 250s? Still.
Oh, yeah.
Just for a little bit of chorus, crazy, take it back to the 80s vibe. That's a little bit on the start of Panic Attack on the intro. We've got that.
Next time you're going to have to dig out the Rockman.
Well, I've got
you probably did that.
I have got a Rockman plug-in on some of the clean stuff, actually.
Yeah.
Glenn has got his original Rockman. He's got the original one.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun. And actually, it was funny you mentioned that. Defenders of the Faith, I've got the multi-tracks to that.
Mm-hmm.
And that is actually 2 tracks of Marshall and 2 tracks of Rockman all the way through it.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's funny because the Marshall is quite dark on that album, but the Rockman is what's adding the mid-range to the riffs. So it did work. It was kind of like the first Kemper, wasn't it, in a way?
Absolutely. And it was used on so many things in the 80s and stuff.
It's such an iconic sound in a way, isn't it? Yeah.
It has a thing. Why not? You can use anything, right? I mean, like, there's...
I always say, if it sounds good, it's good, isn't it? I'm not one of these guys that's a purist about any of this. If it's digital and it sounds good, if it's a plug-in, it sounds good. If it's an amp and it sounds good, use it. It's about capturing the performance, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So,
totally.
I'm surprised, Dave, that you would bring up the Rockman though, because the
Gallion Kruger remind me of a Rockman.
Yeah,
but you're not a big Tom Schultz.
No, I'm not a big Tom Schultz fan, but there's been not as the whole sound.
Yeah.
But there's been records that were used.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where some of the clean parts and some of the semi-gritty clean parts were used, and that was used, and that's kind of ingrained in my head because I grew up in the 80s.
Yeah. So Mania a Rockman into a Palmer speaker simulator or something. Wasn't that the main rig?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean it was on all those sort of albums. Everyone was getting them back in the 80s and using them somewhere, weren't they?
Yeah, totally. It was like the first pod. Yes, exactly.
But the clean sound definitely has there's so much hiss and top end on it, but it's the chorus and the clean sound is great on those things. Just for real classic 80s clean sound. It's amazing.
Yeah, I actually like the clean sounds on the 80A MP1.
Yeah, I've got one of those.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people during that time period too used the JC120s live and stuff.
We used it on Power actually. We used I might have used it on this album as well, but we had a Japanese telly straight into the JC120, which was actually Tom Allen's JC120. So that had been used on the Priest albums previously. And again, it's that Metallica clean sound. And I think Queensryche used to use it as well. It's such a charm. Yeah.
Totally. It's a good thing. I had a friend of mine that used to put EVs in the JC120 combos and stuff. And that was a good sound actually too with the JC.
I think they were keyboard amps originally, weren't they? The JC120s.
Yeah. You don't want to hear them distorted, that's for sure. But
no.
No, but
that's the bad thing.
They make them new still, right? I mean, but they don't compare. Are they just as good as the old ones?
I don't. The funny thing is, I kind of wanted to own one for a while, and I've never kind of gone over the cliff and gotten one.
Yeah,
they're big.
Rarely, wouldn't you? Really? I mean, they do it's the 40 watt as well. They do now, isn't there? I think they do a smaller version.
So yeah.
But I don't think they're making them any different to how they made them originally. It might be just people always want the original, don't they?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but they're great for that one trick, for that one clean part on the album. Just wheel it in, a couple of 57s, off we go.
Yep. Well, I'm glad you just brought up 57. So speaking of microphones, this month at Sweetwater.
Here we go. It's microphone month.
It's microphone month. So let me bring up the details from Sweetwater, and we can just quickly talk about that. So, guys, make sure you use our link below the channel. It's a little description, and it provides our affiliate link.
Yeah, what do we got up there?
Yeah. Any good deals?
Yes. So here, microphone month. So they're right now, especially there's special financing and all kinds of stuff. So hundreds of microphone deals. Let's see, what do they got? Instrument mics and sets. Any deals going on? What are some of your favorite mics that you use, Andy?
Guitar-wise, I tell you, I really like the Austrian Audio, the 818 that they brought out. It's sort of the best 414 you'll buy. That's been working out really well in the studio. John from Dream Theater, John Petrucci, put me onto the SE. Is it the V2? The high-priced ribbon mic that they do. And that's pretty killer as well. Live, we're using the Shure. Is it? I don't know what it is. I don't know the number. The ribbon mic, the Shure ribbon mic, might be 313 with a 57, and that's working out really well. I was quite surprised by that. It could really, for saying how loud we are live, it can really handle the sound pressure. So yeah, those really at the minute. Yeah, I've got a bunch of the Crimson Audio 57s, which have got the different transformers in them.
Right.
Which they remind me of the earlier Unidyne 357s, which are a little bit more open when they're still made in America.
Yeah, I have one of those.
Yeah, I managed to get a bunch of those actually. So they're always sort of the ones I go to. So
here's a good one that you might not know about. So there's a microphone, I know Sweetwater carries it, called the Soyuz.
Right.
Soyuz is a brand, and it's called the 1973.
Yeah. I've seen
it is a killer guitar mic.
Is this right here?
Especially as an all-in-one guitar mic. It's really great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Several people I know. I remember
Pete Thorne.
Pete Thorne, a friend of mine, was there. You know who Pete is, right? He was there at Sweetwater doing some sort of video or something at some fest or something, and they were doing mic shootouts in the studio there and stuff, and just for guitar, just listening to mics. And they had thrown that in the mix, and he pulled it up, and you're like, "What's that?" Yeah. In the end, he goes, "I sold myself a mic."
Yeah. A couple of others. There's this company United, which a friend of mine, Chad, who used to work at PreSonus, he's been involved with them. They're doing their FET 47, which is pretty good.
Is that United Audio?
Yeah. And the other one is the JZ mic, the 67. I've been using that on cabs as well, and that's got quite a nice fullness to it. What else have I been using as well?
Here's that FET 47. That's What do you use this one for?
I've used that on in front of kick drums. I've used that on guitar cabs as well. Just to add a bit more depth to it. It's basically what you'd expect out of 47. A decent price.
Yeah.
Just trying to think of the other one as well.
It's interesting. I find it sort of interesting. It seems like in the States,
Lewitt
versus
the Lewitt mics.
The Lewitt. Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah.
They make great stuff.
Yeah.
I find that in the States, there's a different idea sometimes what the greatest guitar mics are.
Yeah.
Versus Europe, and I always found that interesting. Here, pretty much, the 57, the standard, of course, blended with a 121 or the old school 421.
Yeah, it was always there you go, wasn't it?
Typical blend, that's what 421 and a 57. Brendan O'Brien, Bob Rock, those guys, and then they'd have a condenser further back, like a Neumann or something further back in the room to get a little bit of that thing there. And that's and still to this day, that's exactly what they use. They never change it.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about the Bob Rockin review. Yeah, he talked about
57. 57 and a 421, and then
87, whatever. Yeah.
Which is a great sound.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, Bob knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I think so. Bob's a good friend, a sweetheart.
Yeah,
he's a nice guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. Yeah.
So yeah, guys, check out Sweetwater again. It's Microphone Month this month. Click the link below. Also, Thomann for our friends in Europe. Make sure you click our link below for Thomann, as well as fixpedalboards.com. Make sure you go
all
there.
Your pedal board little accessories you need.
Yep. So we got a couple super chat questions. Yeah, right. Richard Sekison, what's up, man? Thanks for the super chat.
Mark, hey man, how are you?
Cool. Tone Talk's the best. Thank you. New Priest album is insane. My ears have been bleeding for weeks now. Guitar tone is mad. Well done, Andy.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah, it sounds fantastic.
I like the ears bleeding. That's good.
Yeah, that's right, isn't it? That's good. That's a good thing. Yeah,
that's a good thing.
Yeah,
doesn't sound like a good thing, but it's
yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting sometimes when albums hit you like that.
Yeah, I always find it tough to listen to a record after I've finished it. I mean, I really don't listen to albums after I've done them. I'm so burnt. I mean, people really don't understand the pressure that, especially the people deadlines as well. It really it beats you up. And when an album's released, it's just you're just praying that the reviews are all right. Because you read everything into it. You really put your heart and soul into an album when you do it.
Yeah, and then someone just rips it apart, and you're just like, oh.
Yeah, you might have 20 good comments, and that one comment is just like a dagger.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. You can have 1,000
people will do that, and like I understand. I've been in the studio. I understand what you're talking about. I see time and time again, and some genres of music might even be worse because you're trying to fix something that's not quite great to begin with.
Yeah, and it's also, I'm not talking about Priest here, but it's you're doing an album, you're having to do it a certain way because, like you say, there might be one of the players might, I don't want to say not be
be the most proficient.
Yeah, the way someone plays obviously affects the tone of an instrument. The way it's on guitar, and if you're then having to do that left and right and duplicate things, it's always that thing that it exaggerates things. Sometimes I always try and go for two rigs, one either side, because if there's something within a tone that is slight whistle maybe, or something within the dampening on someone's playing, you don't want the same thing both sides because you're just exaggerating that fault. So you can kind of add width to your mix if you've got a slight different setup either side. It's doing that, just sort of sitting next to each other. Mm-hmm. So there's all, people don't understand. It's not a case of just having a hack version of Cubase and a couple of STL plugins and doing it at home. You've got to try and capture the performance and make it work for the musicians that are there. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the whole performance and the way that a band plays can really steer the way that you work with the tones. Sometimes you get something for a mix and it all falls into place easily because everyone's, like say, proficient at their job. Sometimes it's a little bit of a fight, and you can usually feel it's not quite right. You have to shuffle things. You have to do a little bit more within the mix than you would regularly do.
Sometimes you're tuning and comping vocals for a week.
Yeah, I try. You know what? I try not to tune vocals where it's not necessary. I'd rather hear something slightly flat or under or reach into the note, like the old days. I mean, if you listen to those old albums, there's mistakes all over them, isn't there?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's what makes it great.
Yeah, it's the faults that made the band almost,
And also the timing, like not everything was to a grid, not everything was to a click. If you analyze, old songs, the most famous songs in the world, it's like, hey, this chorus is at this tempo, the second chorus is at a wholly different tempo.
Yeah.
Each verse is all different tempos.
It's got like a breathing thing.
Yeah. And I'm more and more thinking along those lines. I did an album with a friend of mine, Mike Gray, who used to be in a band called Skin and Jagged Edge back in the 80s. And he called me up it's got to be a year ago now, and said, I want to do an album. I want to do a solo album in 3 days. I'm like, oh, great, here we go. And he said, I want to do it like the old Radio 1 sessions where we used to, record it, everyone together in one room, 3 takes of each song, pick the best one, move on, and do 12 songs, and we did it in 3 days. And we did it. And it was such good fun because we had everyone just making eye contact. The drummer still had a click just to keep him in the pocket, but we didn't go in, we didn't correct anything. We just got a good take, stuck vocals on, stuck the solos on, mixed it super quick, And I'm like, I've got to do this more often. I forgot how good this was working like this. And that's how we used to work like that on tape all the time.
Yeah, sure. Record in the room with people.
Yeah, we weren't we were using our ears a lot more, really, think about it. And it was actually less fatiguing in a way because it was more just vibing off the music. And, but that was when we had 3 weeks pre-production before an album, and bands were rehearsing before they came in to do an album. We don't get that anymore. People are just writing, they've got their own little DAW set up and they're writing at home. And it's great. Obviously it's a great way of putting ideas down. But I'm really missing days of bands rehearsing and coming into a studio where they all know exactly what they're playing. They've played the songs together. They've got a feel for the song. They've got the push and pull, and everyone's looking at each other. And I think we need to try and get a little bit more of that back. And I've been guilty of it. I've been, when Pro Tools first came out, we all sort of get into that mode of editing it and getting it super tight and mechanical. That was kind of the thing of 20 years ago when we suddenly discovered all this. But I think it is pulling back a little bit, and people want a bit more of that, the feel of the band in there. Now.
Yeah. You ever see any of those Rick Beato videos where he quantizes like John Bonham's drums?
I haven't seen that, but I bet it's amazing.
Oh my God, that one was pain. It was just when you heard it quantized and everything was perfect. It was like everything that you loved about it was gone.
Yeah,
it sucked the life out of it.
Sucked the life right out of it.
I always say this about those old albums as well. I mean, people go on about the Bonham drum sound, how amazing it is, but it's really his performance that people are in love with. It really is. He's there grunting away, playing, and he really was, for me. He was the magic with Led Zeppelin for me.
Oh, absolutely.
That groove he had was just incredible.
Yeah.
I'm not a big Zeppelin fan, but to me, Bonham was just amazing.
Yeah. I had the pleasure of many times seeing on a different grooving drummer note, and not in the metal genre, but Jeff Porcaro.
Right. Okay.
And I've seen him in person, knew him, saw him on sessions, and if he just sat down at a drum kit, your jaw would hit the floor.
Yeah.
Because the feel of the whole thing, the pocket of it all, it was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then it's hard to replicate when he's
There's
gone.
some couple things in life that I remember really well. I also remember one time standing outside of a rehearsal room when Whitney Houston was singing, and to hear it through the wall. And I'll never forget that. She was unbelievably great.
Yeah.
It was just, and so powerful and so much. I couldn't, and it's not my thing, but still, you're like listening to it, you're going, oh my God.
Yeah, you can recognize.
Incredible,
That's awesome. We got another question or comment from Steve Malt. What's going on, Steve? Hey, Andy, been a huge fan of your productions for decades now. You've been an inspiration for as long as I can remember, and I used to frequent your forum daily. I can't thank you enough for all you've done. You're the man. Oh,
did he pay you $20 for that?
He did.
He did.
Could have paid me 15 and said the same thing.
Oh, that's funny.
The forum used to be good, actually. I mean, I didn't really set that up with anything in mind. It was just someone in passing at the Ultimate Metal Forum said, "Oh, you've got your website, you should have a forum," and we just put it together, and all of a sudden it became the go-to place. I mean, this must be nearly 20 years ago. For everyone that was sort of starting recording, there's been so many people that were on the forum back in the day that have gone on and,
like Misha, right?
Yeah, and Joey, I think Joey Sturgis was on there, and
Nolly as well.
Yeah, Nolly, and is it Sean that does Kazrog? And a load of the guys have all gone on. Lassie as well, Lassie Lamanti. He's doing good stuff, and we've all sort of managed to find a little niche for ourselves in the business. So it was kind of good because we were all, at that point, maybe I was ahead of the guys a little bit at the time, but they've all gone on and done something. So it's nice,
Yeah, that's cool. Like they actually have started a forum and see everybody else kind of blossom right from that.
It got to a point though where I was going on there and passing comments, and the usual internet trolls would turn up and tell me I was wrong on things, and I was kind of like, well, I'm not going to claim I'm the expert, but I think I've had a bit more experience, So
of course,
guys, So
I get that all the time,
I was say, Dave, you've running.
I've been doing amps for years, but even before that I've been building guitar rigs for years, and and people would get into it with me, and I'm like, really? I don't know. I've like 35 years experience doing it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about. Yeah,
I think I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's the internet for
at this point.
Yeah, it can be incredibly negative, can't it?
It can be. You just have to wade yourself through it. I mean, we've been doing this show now for 7 years, and I'd say it's 90.
Still can't believe it's 7 years already.
I know, isn't that crazy?
God, seems like yesterday.
I know, it's flown by. But I'd say 95, 98% of it's positive. But then you run into the occasional where you're just like,
the kid in his grandma's basement that's out to get you.
Yeah, exactly.
You kind of have to try to let it slide off your shoulder.
You got it.
You have to
slide off you. Yeah. But occasionally, like you said, that one comment, just like dagger.
Yeah, I know. And it sits with you all day, doesn't it?
You're just sitting there all day going,
I was to get with it. Yeah.
Man.
With you, and then you regret even reading it. You're like, oh, why did I do that?
I try not to look at the comments too much.
You can't. Yeah, I mean,
I do a little bit, but like when a new product comes out, I try to look at the comments a little bit or something.
Yeah, there's one guy at the moment that's got me in his crosshairs. I keep seeing his name pop up. It's like he fucking hates me.
I always said one. I remember one time there was one guy that was causing me some shit, and I wound up getting on the phone with him, and I go, what's your problem with this? Why are you so hell-bent at like hating me? And what did I do to you? I don't even know you.
Yeah.
How can you not? Here's the thing: if you don't really know someone, you shouldn't say anything about them.
No, I've never
know him personally. Just like, and maybe you should never say anything ever.
But no, I've never felt it sort of compelled to say anything negative about anyone on the internet. Whatever you think, even if you don't agree with it, I don't see why you would say it. I think why would you? It baffles me. But,
some people enjoy the anonymity.
Yeah.
Of being able to just throw some shade at somebody, as the kids say today.
If you buy a product and you don't, it's not for you.
Yeah.
And then you make a video about how I returned this product right away. I hated it. Why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's spite.
Well, I mean, do you really have to do that? This isn't a matter of opinion.
Yeah.
And you're actually hurting the person that you actually own amps from. Why are you doing that? Why? There's something in my head that I'm thinking about right now that just happened. So
the other thing that makes me laugh is a lot of these these YouTube videos, which are sort of reaction videos, where people comment on things, and it's. I'm thinking, what is your back history that gives you the knowledge to have this right to speak on things like this? Do you know what I mean? I can understand it with journalists, that have been in the business a long time. You get. I mean, there's a lot of the old school guys that, when we were growing up with journalists, and they all knew the history of music and had a good wealth of knowledge of the music. So they were a good, well, for the most part, they had almost a good opinion on things. But a lot of these people that comment on things now,
who are you?
Never worked a day in the music business in their lives,
Right.
So
the old journalists, they the old journalists that worked for Rolling Stone or something back in the 70s and this and that, they were deep in it.
Exactly.
They were deep in it with the bands, and they were deep in it with everything, and they actually had valid, probably valid points.
Exactly. Yeah.
But now it's just like the internet Joe that makes some album reviews on there, just
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I miss
Tim
the old
Connor.
days.
What's going on, Tim? Thanks for the super chat. Andy, Exodus Tempo of the Damned is the best album I've ever heard.
I literally just had lunch with Steve, the old manager of Exodus, today, and we were talking about the Tempo of the Damned recording sessions. And oh my God, they were mental. We did the drums up at Prairie Sun, which is sort of upstate of San Francisco, and it was an ostrich farm next door.
That must be interesting.
He's chasing Gary Holt across the field, trying to mate with him.
Oh shit!
I didn't think about it. Yeah, God, it was an interesting time because the band were, we were trying to get the band back together in a certain way again as well, and a couple of them had still got drug issues back then, and there was quite a lot of drugs back then. But we kind of did the whole album on tick, really. We didn't have any money to do it, and we got finance from different people, and I did it without getting paid up front. I did it as a sort of a favor for them, and I got paid on the back end. So I went out there. We did the drums, like I say, in Prairie Sun. We did the guitars at a smaller studio. A guy called Chad had Tsunami Studios that we basically worked at. And we did the vocals there as well. And then I mixed it at home back in the UK. But we did it all without they were still signed to Century Media at the time, and we didn't realize because they did the live album on Century Media, and we didn't realize they were still signed to it. So we did this whole album on spec, and then we shopped it around, and we signed it to Nuclear Blast while they were still signed to Century Media. Yeah. The gear-wise, I remember we had Gary's Todd Langner modded 800, which was killer. And I think we used a standard Marshall cab on it, a couple of 57s, and he had an ESPV, which had with EMG Hertz pickups in it. It sort of fitted better with the Marshall, having passive pickups going into the Marshall. The bass tone, I think I reamped the bass. I think we tracked it just with it got the Yamaha bass, as Jack had, that is still using now, and I think I reamped that at home. I'd got I think it was a PV Firebase rig I used. I think we had some Ampeg stuff on it as well. Tom had, I couldn't tell you what drums it was using. Not back then. He's obviously using Yamaha now. He's got a Rogers snare drum that we always joke about. His old Rogers snare drum that he used on the original Exodus albums. That always seems to make
the metal snare, Rogers metal, like.
Yeah, I think it is. It's quite a shallow one, but we always joke that Rogers come to the recording session this time. Rogers angry today. That sort of thing. So, but I tell you, it's such a funny bunch of guys. We have such a good laugh because they're total goofballs. It's just mental behavior with those guys. So especially back then, sort of 20 20 years ago, it was a little bit off the hook to be honest with you. But we had a good time, yeah. And obviously, Gary actually had a lot of stuff written. He had another band, I can't remember what it was called, before we got Exodus together again, and we sort of refined some of that music for this album, for the Tempo album. So that kind of shaped some of the stuff on the album. But yeah, it was just pretty straightforward. I think SM7 on vocal. Nothing out of the ordinary, really.
The quintessential rock vocal mic.
It works, doesn't it? I mean, it's
it never gets. It never. You can never distort it. You can never. Fritz out the preamp in it. You can never. If it's a really loud vocalist, it'll take it.
This is what we're talking into right now.
Yeah, that's right.
I always think I always record, a condenser, and I'll put the SM7 up as well as a backup, and go between the two. On the Accept record that I've just done, I ended up using the SM7 for everything. It just suited Mark's vocal better. It did just grab the mid range a little better. If you've got someone that's got quite a spiky mid range, it just sort of it handles it. I think I always used to use an SM7 with Worrell on the Nevermore albums as well. He got a bit of a screech in his voice, so it worked well.
And it's always easy because it'll EQ well. You know, it never sounds sort of too hyped. Like
no, it's not. Yeah, you can get a bit more of that presence in there if you want it.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be the most flattering mic, but it's got that broadcast quality that's got the closeness, hasn't it? So it works.
Yeah, and they can throw it against the ground if they want.
Yeah,
I heard it.
Yeah. Combat Wombat, what's going on? Hey Andy, big fan of your production work. The kill switch stuff alone is monumental. Do you find that mic'd up amp tones are easier to work with in the mix than modular stuff versus amps with IRs, etc.?
Not really. I like I said earlier, I think if it sounds good, it's good. There's a few albums I've done recently that have just been modular stuff, and quite a lot of the time as well. For lead stuff as well, I'll use a plugin purely because you can automate it, to what the person's playing in the solo. So, if there's a fast run that's got a little bit messy, you can just dial the gain back on the automation on the plugin, and you clean it up and you get it to pop a little bit more. So I know I'm not a purist with this stuff. I think if it sounds good, it sounds good. And I always, I've got such a collection of amps and mics at the studio. I always like to dig into it and have a bit of fun with it. That's part of the reasons I do production. I like messing with gear rather than just putting a plug-in on something.
Absolutely.
So I'll always try. But if there's, if I'm finding something's not working after, half a day of plugging mics in and wheeling cabs backwards and forwards, I'll try a plug-in and see if it does what I'm after, So, it can be horses for courses, really. And sometimes, if we've got 4 tracks of guitars, there'll be 2 tracks of, a plug-in and 2 tracks of an amp, mix it up a bit. Yeah. One thing I have been doing quite a lot recently, I did profiles, IRs of my guitar room. I fired an impulse response back through the cab and with the 87s in the guitar room, and I tend to use that now. I'll put a guitar plug-in in, just like an STL plug-in or a neural plug-in, and take the speaker off, and then put the speaker IR from the room mics onto it, and just so it gives me my guitar room straight away. And that's quite a nice thing of just adding that little bit of air in there, and it's the room that I want on it every time. So
that's interesting.
That's quite a cool little trick.
So what's your studio like at home?
It's a let's think about this. It was built in 1698, not the actual studio, obviously.
Yes.
But it was built back then. It's an old farm, basically, of 15 acres of land. I don't use any of the land for farming now. I rent the fields out to neighbouring farmers so that the land's all taken care of. But the actual property is an old dairy farm, and the stables and the control room are sort of a wing that are on the on the house that I live in. So we've got enough accommodation for 5 people in the studio. There's a smaller Pro Tools room, a B room, that's, you know, full Pro Tools, not native, what's the other one, HDX or whatever it is. I've got two setups like that. The main room has got a sort of a full rehearsal room type area, and it's got another sort of drum room that we use for guitar rigs as well, and then the control room off to the side. I've got an SSL AWS. Which one is it? The 48 channel one. Yeah. The stereo channel one. 948, I think it's called. So I've got that and a load of outboard gear. I just like, you know, because I grew up working on old E-Series SSLs, Judas, you know, for me, just having stems coming back up the SSL, you know, and having a sort of physical contact with it where you can reach out and turn an EQ. I kind of like that old-fashioned way of working with it. I've done a lot of albums where it is just in the box, and I still get the results I want out of it. It just takes me a little bit longer to sort of, you know, opening screens and digging in there. I find it quite as daring when it's in the box. I think when you're just turning a knob on an EQ and reaching out on the desk, you tend to just go by instinct a little bit more rather than looking at it. You know, like we were saying about recording, you know, it's that sort of thing.
It sounds like a wonderful place.
Yeah, it's great. And, you know, I'm down there, you know, I'm sort of a mile away from any sort of hustle and bustle. You know, the main town is a mile away. So I've got my own little corner of England down there where I just, you know, sit down there until 4 o'clock in the morning, EQing a hi-hat, you know.
That's funny.
If I'm ever over there again, I'm gonna have to come by and say hi. Yeah, I don't know what city are you near? What?
I'm near Derby. I'm sort of between Nottingham and Derby, where I am. Okay. Not that far from Birmingham, really. About an hour's out of Birmingham. Sheffield's not too far away as well, so it's right in the middle as you look at it. Yeah.
Ah, it sounds great. I'd love to see it one day.
Yeah.
Bowen Matheson. Hey, Andy, do you remember any details about the rhythm guitar tones you dialed in for the Job for a Cowboy album, Genesis, that you mixed? I love how much muscle is in that tone.
God, I can't remember. You know, I get asked, you know, what did you use on this and that, and I can't remember. I had a bunch of stuff back then. I was using 5150s. I was using Crank stuff because they were sending me stuff. Some Randall stuff back then. It was probably 5150s back then, I would have thought, on the Job for a Cowboy stuff. Just think. I can't remember. I honestly can't remember. Sorry.
That's a lot of that's a lot of projects since then, right?
Yeah, I don't make notes or anything. I always just go with gut instinct on stuff. Really.
Welcome to my world too.
Yeah,
someone will email me and it goes, yeah, you know, this amp, I see you had done some mods to this, and it's the serial number this. I'm like going,
yeah.
How about this? How about you send open it up, send me a gut shot of it, and I'll tell you what I did.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I don't remember. I don't keep any notes on anything.
Do you find with app building as well, you go through little sort of trends of what you like as well with the mods you do, or do you stick?
Sure. You know. Here's what winds up happening, and it probably happens even with you, right? So, you develop the circuit, or you develop something that you really like, and everything's great, and you always think you can improve upon it.
Yeah.
And then you go down a rabbit hole of trying to improve upon it. And then you hear the original thing again. You're going, what the fuck did I even bother doing this with? The original one was great.
It's a story to mix it, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, it's like, why did I go down this rabbit hole? I didn't make it better. I made it worse.
Yeah. But you know what? The skill is knowing that you've made it worse and pulling it back.
Yeah. Pulling it back and going back. And then sometimes also, like when you put stuff out there and you gauge people's reactions to things, you know, you start taking some feedback, a little bit of feedback from their reactions to things. Yeah. And you're like, okay, they like that. Oh, they say it's too dark. Okay, let's make it a little brighter then for them. And then, of course, they say, it's, I like the old one better now.
Yeah.
What do you mean? You just said you wanted it brighter, but now you're saying you like the old one better now. So
you've got that thing as well, isn't it? You probably get this where someone will say to you, "Oh, make it browner," or I get mixed notes.
Yeah, I interpret that speak sometimes well if they're I try to feel them out to decide what they're actually talking about.
Yeah,
like
translate it, haven't you?
What do you mean by, or they'll say it's they'll say something and you're like, well, what do you mean by that exactly? You want it more. They said something like, I don't know. They just want more. More of what? What do you want? What is it you're looking for? And what kind of sound? What are you trying to strive for? It's the same. It's like
but they can use
doing an
very
amp is like mixing a record. It's great when you can get in a room with someone and someone that is articulate and can actually tell you what they want and play the amp while you have it on the bench, and you can change things and see their reaction and interpret what they're telling you.
This is what I was saying about the relationship I've got with Dan Gower. It's exactly that, because I can go down to Dan's house, sit there, we can listen to a bunch of amps, play through it. He'll tell me ideas that he's got, which is great because he's genius with this stuff. So, I mean, the rigs that I've got now are by far the best sounding amps I've ever had in my life. They're absolutely crushing these 800s that I've got. And it's got everything I want out of a Marshall. It's got a 3K, I call it teeth, the attack that the Marshalls have got. It's almost a little bit nasty when you listen to it on its own, but when it's in a mix, like about the bass earlier, it just gives it that extra little bit of aggression. But he really understands, he really knows how, when I'm saying, we ended up doing this thing called a Sneap sweep on the amps, which was basically rolling off, I think, sort of doing a frequency roll off after the first preamp section, just again to tighten it up, so I'm not having to use a tube screamer to compress it slightly. It just,
okay, yeah. So it's like a high pass filter kind of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just really adding some percussion in there. To dial the gain back in a bit more. So it's just, just exactly like you say, when you can get that communication, and it's the same when you're mixing an album, if you can get someone in the band that you can actually communicate properly with and has got an idea. Actually, a lot of guys in bands now are getting better at the communicating thing, because they're all getting Pro Tools a little bit and messing around with it and beginning to figure it out a little bit more. So there's some guys that are pretty clued up out there now.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Hunter Routh, thanks for the super chat. And Andy, who would you say was the best or most versatile metal guitarist you've recorded? What was it like recording Testament's Formation of Damnation? Thanks and God bless.
Most versatile guitarist
that you've recorded?
Yeah, I've done a few. Loomis, Jeff's pretty killer. Jeff, I remember.
That's awesome.
Yeah, when I was recording Jeff when we did the Dead Heart album, it was mind blowing doing that.
Jason C. Guitar, you win the prize. He wrote probably Loomis, to be honest.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Jeff's just incredible, a super nice guy as well.
He's a great guy. Yeah, he's got a few of my amps and things.
Yeah. Testament Formation of Damnation. We did that at Fantasy Studios. We did the drums there, which was actually quite a dead room. It was quite a low ceiling and quite a dead room, very sort of 80s in there. But it worked out well. It kind of suited the material we were doing. And we did the rest of the recording at Soundwave's rehearsal studio. Testament have got their own sort of bigger room in there that they've made into a studio. We did the gathering mix in there. And they did the tracking for that in there as well. I think they did low in there as well, the tracking. So yeah, we did the rest of it in the studio, and then again I mixed up back home in England. So it was that sort of going out to California for a few weeks, tracking out there. It's pretty straightforward with Testament, really. Eric's really got his thing dialed in. Alex, I think I might have recorded Alex on that. I think I did. I think Alex came over from New York for Formation, so we had some time doing that. I think I did about 6 of the songs vocally with Chuck, and then he tracked the rest with, I think Vinny did it. I think Vinny, the other engineer, tracked the rest of the vocals on that, and then I mixed it. So it was good. It was good.
Cool. Thanks, Hunter. Appreciate the question. Project Gemini? Yeah, that's what it is. Hey, Andy, big fan of your production work. Just wanted to take a chance to thank you for the Easy Drummer Metal Machine expansion pack. It's still my favorite. I didn't know you did that. Oh.
Yeah, we did that with John Tempesta, who's an old friend. Obviously, he played in Exodus for a while, did some Testament stuff with me as well. We did that. It's over 10 years ago now. We went down to Henson Studios in LA, which was the old M Studios, the classic place down there. Charlie Chaplin's old house, actually.
I remember. I know that place very well.
Yeah. So we went down there for a sort of 5 or 6 days, and just set up in I think it was Studio B we were in, not the big room. Van Halen were in the big room at the time when we were down there. That was quite funny.
Was that Van Halen recording then?
Yeah.
So that was with John Shanks producing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Howard Benson involved with that, with some of the vocals.
No, it was John Shanks that was involved with that T2 record, right? That one?
Yeah, I think it was that one. Yeah.
That's what John Shanks was. Yeah. There's interesting stories out of that.
Yeah, I actually met Dave. I opened the door to Dave one morning, and he was like, "Hi!" I was like, "Jesus Christ!" Totally how you'd expect him. And it's funny because he walked in and he got this dog under his arm, this little dog, dressed exactly the same as him, same sunglasses on the dog as him. Just what you'd expect.
Oh my God!
We had a good time doing that. It was quite interesting because Matthias and the guys from Toon Track had been on to me for a while to do some work for them, and I didn't realise what went into doing these Easy Drummer packs, and it's a lot of work. I mean, doing all the samples, all the different dynamics, and then we had the MIDI kit set up as well, so John could put MIDI grooves down while we were doing other little bits in the studio and setting other bits of the kit up. So it was a full 5 or 6 days down at A&M tracking that, and then we took everything back to the UK. And I'd mix the samples the same way as I would, treat drums, so they could get sort of my EQs and stuff on the drums we recorded. And it's interesting. I mean, it's actually I've used it a ton of times for doing demos, and I tried to keep it a little bit neutral, so it wasn't too metal, even though they marketed it as the metal machine thing. I tried to keep it more like I would record a kit. I think listening back now is maybe a little bit toppy on a few things. I'd probably add a bit more weight in on things now, but that was just where I was at the time with recording and sort of learning how they did this. They're talking to me about doing another one, actually, so we might be looking at doing that next year sometime. So but it's certainly been, I think it's by far one of the most popular packs they've done. I think just because it was one of the first ones to come out that really fitted the metal genre. So it's done well.
I've got it on my computer.
Yeah.
I have Easy Drummer, and I've got all the packs. So,
I mean, it works great, doesn't it? The demo and stuff, and being able to. I don't use a lot of the functions that they've sort of brought in now with Easy Drummer 3. I'm still stuck in sort of early Easy Drummer mode where I'll just drag things into the timeline on Pro Tools and write that way. I don't bother using any of the extra little functions that they've done. I just got into a way of working with it that's good for me, but it works. So it's good.
Yeah, it's definitely a good program. Here, let's talk speakers. So Joshua Allen do you have a guitar speaker cabinet that seems to work for most sessions?
I've got, I think at last count, about 23, 25 cabs in the studio.
Wow.
I've got I tell you,
everything is what you have.
Yeah, well, yeah, I've got a lot. I've never really sell gear. I'm a bit of a hoarder. I've Celestians. I mean, you'll know this, Dave. They vary so wildly depending on what year they were made.
Yeah, absolutely. Or not even in the same year.
Yeah.
It's just like speaker to speaker.
Yeah. I had a bunch of Randall cabs that they sent me back in 2006, and I don't want to diss anyone here, but they were just odd sounding. I couldn't get these cabs sounding, and I thought it was because of they got that speaker simulation thing in the back. They got that. Yeah. So I was trying taking that out and hardwiring it to a jack.
Wasn't that?
And it was like the batch of Celestians, and I've got 24 of these damn V30s that are in these cabs. Not one of them sounds good. It's just so weird. And it's turned, I contacted John at Celestian and said, yeah, what's going on? What was going on in 2006? And he was like, yeah, I'm sorry about that. He actually sent me a bunch of new Celestians, and honestly, it was like night and day. The new Celestians were so good. I was actually, the Chinese ones, but they were great. So I've got a bunch of newer Celestians that they're making now that I really like. I've actually got an old. I've got a cab that I've got some old Priest speakers in from when we swapped some speakers out when we were in Japan. One of the speakers got damaged, and they're the original Ipswich ones from the late 90s that are in there. And I had to glue one of the dust caps back on the cone. But they sound really good, oddly enough. They've got a certain character that work well.
Vintage 30s or greenbacks?
They're green. They're vintage 30s.
Okay.
I've got some greenbacks. I have got an 8-ohm greenback cab that sounds really good that Marshall made for me, and I actually just got a 1994 reissue of the Hendrix stack with the taller cabs.
Yeah,
they sound great for sort of more rock tones, with the plexi.
Yeah,
I always find the greenbacks work well with plexis. They sort of just calm them down a little bit, don't they? And I just got one of those Fryer PS 100s, just to sort of try and bring the plexi, back into a listenable range a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
I'm really digging that actually. I got a Tone King. What's that one? Their attenuator I thought was pretty good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That worked pretty well. The UAD Oxbox, it's good for home use, not so good for attenuator. We've blown a few plexi.
The attenuator is kind of bad.
Yeah,
and the it can get pretty good results direct.
Yeah.
As long as you put on a low pass filter in the end and take the sizzle off the very top of it a little bit.
Yeah, I just think that UAD really dropped the ball on the software on that a little bit. I think the speaker they could have done a lot more with adding IRs and letting the user add IRs and more speaker selection. It's a bit of a shame that they only sort of did 2 updates on it really. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean that's the sort of the greenbacks and the vintage 30s are always the ones I tend to go for. I've got some 65s that are okay for something a bit different.
Old ones?
Yeah, old ones.
Yeah. The old 65s can be great in the right cab.
Yeah, I've got
like an old cab with the 65.
What I've got is it's going to be about 6 of my cabs are the old 80s, the original Marshalls. I think that were the Birch Ply the original Marshalls.
Well, really old cabs had everything was birch ply.
Yeah.
Really old cabs had a birch ply back.
Yeah.
And then later it was changed to a particle board back.
Right. Yeah.
Both are good. They're just different. So the birch is a little punchier.
Yeah.
And the particle board one has a little bit more low end girth to it. And they're both good. I have old cabs that have both, and they're killer.
Yeah, I got a load of the 80s ones. It was actually I went down to Marshall back in the 80s, and it was Ken Brand that used to be down there. He used to be the sort of A&R for Marshall, and I was just getting a couple of dummy cabs off him, just for live use. And I walked in, and there was whole wall of cabs all the way down the corridor. And I was like, what are these? What are you doing with these? And they'd done them for a cult video. I think it was either Little Devil or one of the, one of the 80s singles they did where Billy's walking on top of all the cabs.
Yeah.
And they were the cabs that they'd made for that, apparently. And I was like, well, we're going to have to use them for music shows or trash them or something. Literally got a scuff out on a corner or something. I said, well, I'll have them off you. What do you want? So I bought the £35 each I paid for these cabs. So I got a load of empty cabs hanging around at the studio all the time. So I've slowly loaded these cabs up over time.
Yeah, with different speakers and stuff, right? Yeah.
So and then Marshall, they got beaten up because I used to rent them out as well. They got totally destroyed by the end of it. And then Steve, who I've known at Marshall for years, he started doing I think they call it the custom shop there now, where they'll put a logo on the front of the cabs and recover cabs for you. And he said, send them down and we'll sort them out for you. So I sent like 8 cabs down, and they refitted them with vintage 30s and Tolex them and sorted the backs out, made them really tight. So I've got some really nice sounding cabs now that work great. But I found that the newer Celestians that they're making are matching all the old ones that I like. So Celestion have got their act together and seem to be doing good work again now. So it's good.
Great.
That's good.
Awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. I thought this was an interesting question. What are some of your favorite? Oh, we asked that already. Favorite techniques. What was the one I was going to ask? This one. What rig are you currently using with Judas Priest?
Well, that was I was saying I've got the Dangar 800s. I've got quite an interesting setup. I'm using the Camper for my in-ears. And we're using mics for out front. Martin, our front of house guy, is sort of an old school guy that likes to have control with the mics. So I was trying to think of a way that we could keep everyone happy. So I've got I used a Camper controller, not the floorboard, but just the controller. And Rob, my guitar tech's got the same controller that we connect with an Ethernet hub. And I've got the Boss GT1000 in the effects loop of the 800. Dan put an effects loop in there. So I'm basically running the 800 in 4 cable mode with the GT1000. So what I'm hearing in my ears is Camper. What you're hearing out front is the 800. And the Camper sends MIDI messages to the GT1000, which has got a relay switch on it, which switches the amp. So everything happens in sync. So yeah, it's the 800 out front. I get the Camper in the ears, so it doesn't change at all. I've got the same thing, whether a mic falls over or something's different level.
Oh yeah, I was just going to ask you that. So why did you choose the Kemper for your ears? So
yeah, I was going to ask that too. Yeah.
And I can do a stereo spread. I can use a little bit more delay in there for one that's not affecting anything out front. I've actually got my solos quieter in the in-ears than the boost out front, because obviously, you do a solo boost in the in-ears, it can totally put you off. You can hear every little detail,
Yeah.
You can lose the pitch, you can lose the timing, because you can't do that thing where when you're on stage and you're just using monitors, you can find a sweet spot for your solos. You can't do that. You can't, so it's nice to have that sweet spot sort of programmed in for the in-ears.
Okay.
That was the thinking behind it, and it's actually worked really well. It's everyone's happy with it. Our front of house guy loves that, having the mics. I love having the Camper for the in-ears, and I can dial it in for comfort really in the in-ears, where it doesn't affect front of house.
And the Kempers, does it have the models of your amps?
Yeah, well, it's got one. Yeah, I didn't bother profiling the Marshalls, to be honest. I think I've just got 5150 in the in-ears.
Oh, okay.
But it's just I don't know if you've got in-ears or used molds, but it can get quite it's quite different hearing it so close. You're in your own little bubble when you've got in-ears. You're sort of zoned out a little bit, and you're in your own little world up there, especially with the spotlight in your eyes. Right. So it kind of helps. With the kick and snare, you can really hear the timing of the kick and snare, and you can really hear the articulation on the guitar. with a certain profile that's in your in-ears. So
Mhm.
I just got a profile where I felt it gave me the detail that I needed to hear.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
not heard that that approach before.
I sometimes wonder if the in-ears have great attributes, but at the same time,
I think there's two ways of looking at it. I mean, Richie doesn't use in-ears. He'll be deaf in 10 years, without a doubt, the volume he is on stage. But I was chatting to him about it the other day, and he was saying that because we've still got a loud backline happening on stage, and he likes the way it reacts. And which I totally get. It's part of the performance, isn't it? It's not so easy, obviously, for the front of house guy, because you've got to sort of mix that within that. You've got to make the back line work within the PA. You've got to sort of blend it and make it work. You've got bands that have got a silent back line up there now. There's nothing except a drum kit coming off stage. It's strange, isn't it?
It doesn't sound right.
No.
It doesn't feel right. It doesn't sound right. I have this big problem with that.
Yeah. I think you should at least have a cab up there making a bit of racket.
Something.
Yeah.
Even if it's small.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you do need that reaction with a cab, I think. It makes you play a certain way, I think. You're keeping it under control, and it is nice to feel like almost a thump from it. Do you know what I mean? Even if you've got the in-ears in. Even when I'm up there with in-ears, I can still feel the back line behind me sort of hit.
Right. So, I mean, to me, it was always like, how can it be like an aggressive metal band?
Yeah.
And not with no volume on stage? That doesn't makes zero sense to me.
It was really part of the fun of it, wasn't it? I mean,
well, I mean, like the aggression comes from a lot of times the volume.
Yeah.
And the thump behind it.
Yeah.
And that makes you feel a certain way as a player.
Yeah.
And you're going to be into it more.
Yeah.
I see. I just was at a festival in Las Vegas, and it was like I would see some modern younger bands with no cabs, no nothing. And then you would literally see an older band comes out with real cabs and everything. And the difference just listening was immense. It was immense.
Yeah. I mean, you can do it. I think you've got to have center fills up there. You've got to have, you've got to have it dialed in for the front row as well, because it's so.
For front row screwed if you don't. Yeah,
you've got to have something coming off the stage a little bit at least. But what I was saying, I think I think a bad performance with in-ears is probably still tighter maybe than a good performance without. It kind of, I think it does help with it, especially on the bigger stages, like festival stages, where you're monitoring, as soon as you've walked out onto the wings of the stage or out front, you're hearing the PA roll.
Yeah.
So in those sort of situations, I think it really helps that you've got a balanced mix in your head all the way across the board. It does take a little bit of getting used to. I've been using the JHs, the
Gary Harvey.
Yeah, I've actually blown one of the right-hand ones up recently.
Which ones?
I've got the 16s.
Okay.
And one of the drivers has gone out the right ear, so they've had to go back this week. I've gone back onto my West Thames that I've got, and that threw me a little bit for a couple of gigs. Just because it's so in your head, it's there, and you get so used to the sound. But once you get used to it, and you get your monitors properly dialed in, it is good. It is, the clarity is great, and being able to hear that kick and snare to really lock into, it really helps, especially with the fast stuff.
Right, sure.
Mm-hmm.
So Stu, I hope you heard the answer, because we actually just went through it.
Yeah.
Talking about your live priest tone, and if the Kemper, can you detail the specs of abs? So you're using a 5150 cab in your ears.
In my ears, yeah.
He wants to know if you can put out a pack.
No.
No.
Yeah. No, I've sort of steered clear from doing all that stuff. you know, sort of everyone and the mother is doing camper packs and you know, these plugins and stuff. And I just, you know, there's so much out there now. There's good stuff out there. I don't think me doing another pack of tones is going to change the world of heavy metal now. And I just didn't want to really get roped into that side of things. So I've sort of just stayed clear of it. And, you know, if someone wants my tone, they can pay me.
There you go.
No, I just
Pay me to record your record.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, and I don't think I always think this thing of, you know, I always dial a tone into the player as well. I always try and dial it in to how someone plays and how it fits in with the music. So sort of taking it out of context, you know, it's just a bit, you know, I don't think it really works. Just sort of going around, this is the tone from this album. There you go. It's not going to fit your hands, is it? You know, so I don't know. That's kind of my logic.
Yep. Fryette Amps. What's up, Steve? Just drop by to say hey, love you guys. Thanks, man. Love you too. He was just on, and he just released his Deliverance 2 Plus amp. So guys, check out that amp from Fryette. And also the Cyclops is coming out soon, as we talked about, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk guitars. So Andy, what guitars are you playing with Priest right now? And what are some of your go-to guitars and favorites?
Yeah, I've got what have I got out with me? I've got a couple of Jacksons that I've bought recently. I've had a few Jacksons actually. I used to play the old Fernandez sharp fins back in the 80s and always found the shape comfortable. And I've been on a bit of a Jackson trip where I bought one in Japan a few years ago and really liked it. I've got a couple of the early 2000 American ones, just the black Rhodes V's. I bought a white one that got out on this. So I think it's a 90. Is it a 97? Might be a 93 actually. American one. DiMarzio pickups. Yeah, that one's great. I've got King V that I've got out with me. That'll start the set off. I think that's 2007. And then I've bought a couple of the old, I say old, a couple of the sort of the mid 2000 Explorers that they brought out, just the white ones. I found a couple of those that I liked, just sort of fit in my hand right. One of them had a neck break on it, the one that I've got out on this one actually, but it actually plays better than the one that was. I was
going to say, does it sound better than the other one?
I've actually put a super distortion in that now, so yes, it does now. It stayed in tune better than the other one.
Yeah, I find it very interesting. Neck breaks. It's like many clients of mine have had guitars that they loved with neck breaks.
Yeah,
and they swear they sound better than before. And it's a thing. It's kind of a thing. So it's like never be shy of the neck break.
No, they never
be the greatest guitar, and it'll be cheaper.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what else I got. I got a Gibson E2, a 1981 E2, which is, I don't know if you have a look at some of the pictures I'm playing when I'm doing the encores. It's like a almost like vintage Sunburst. It's got the binding on it. It's not the weird curved one, but it's an Explorer. And I'm on this super distortion trip at the moment. I've got super distortion in that, and that thing is phenomenal. I just don't use it that much because it's so heavy. It's like a boat anchor, that thing. Mm. But it's so solid, that guitar. I also, the other day, I bought a 4-digit Hamer. I got a 1982 standard that's absolutely beaten to death. The paint's all checking on it.
Which Hamer is it? Is it the
standard?
Explorer? It's a standard.
So it's black with white.
Oh, those are cool shit.
Yeah,
those are great.
Yeah, and that was a nice find. And I actually know some of the guys that used to work at Hamer, and I got it checked out on the logbook, and it all tallied up. It was like a Sunburst that was sprayed over black in the factory, but the paint's all checked on it. And I was looking at this Hamer. They've got a Hamer at Chicago Music Exchange. I was looking at this Hamer Vector V they've got in there the other day that was up for $7,000. I mean, it's immaculate, this thing, 2007, and the credit card was fighting its way out the pocket, you know. And I was just like, you know what? I'm never going to play this. It's going to be one of those. It's such good condition. I'm not going to dare take it on the road. So I like it when I find a guitar that's had a life. You know, it's got a bit of character. It's got a few. It's already got the first mark in it. It's devastating when you get that prize guitar and then you put the first chip in it.
Oh, it hurts so badly.
Oh, it's terrible, isn't it? It's the worst. Yeah. So,
and inevitably, it always happens within like the first week of owning it.
I don't have that feeling. I always think the chip just adds character. So
I should talk to my guitar tech then, because he's good at that.
I mean, I don't know. I don't like pristine guitars. I don't buy them.
No, I know what you mean.
I like ones that have some care. You know, that have some life to them. They've lived a life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny when, Rich is quite, he's quite clued up on a lot of the old stuff. I mean, he tends to go and see a lot of these collectors. We went over to Matt's Guitars in Paris the other day, and Matt's got Jeff Beck's old graffiti yellow Strat, and he's got a 58, original Gibson 58 in there, and he's got a 57 gold top in there. And he was saying, he brought the 58 to the gig to let Richie play it. And he's right. These guitars are there, and they're meant to be played. They're meant to be out there. They're meant to be an inspiration for someone, aren't they? And it's nice. It's nice when a guitar, you pick a guitar up and it feels right, and the neck suits you. I always say, if you're in a shop and you pick a guitar up and it buy it. If it feels right, buy it, because you'll be regretting it.
Absolutely, right.
Yeah. And I always say, it's worth, if you get that one riff that makes you're living out of it, it's worth it, isn't it? I'm still looking for it, but
that's the fun.
Yeah,
exactly.
If it was all over, that would be, if you didn't have that desire anymore to buy that, what fun would that be?
Gear is so much fun, isn't it? I mean, pedals, amps, guitars. I can just, I get into these modes where I go after a certain type of guitar, and I'll buy 3 of them, and just,
sure.
You've got to have a backup of a backup, haven't you?
Why not?
Absolutely.
One will be the best one out of all of them. There'll be one.
Absolutely, there'll be one that's the greatest, and then the other ones. I've done that myself, and you know what? I'm not playing professionally. I'm just like in my shop, right?
Yeah.
Just like, I really like this certain guitar. I'm getting 2. Wait, I got another one. I bought another one. I have 2. I have 2. I like these road-worn Strats that I really like, and I put humbuckers in them and stuff. But the 50s road-worn has a slight V-neck. I really like it. Okay.
Yeah.
And I have 2 of them. They're almost identical to each other.
Yeah.
But there is one that sounds slightly better than the other.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? I've got about, I think at last count I had 5 of the old 70s Ibanez Rocket Rolls. They're Korean.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, and I've got a great
cool.
I got an Antoria version. They all came out the same factory over there, but they were just badged differently for different continents. Right. But yeah, I've been going. I had a thing about those for a little while, and then I got into Explorers again. And
you got an Ibanez Explorer?
I wish I had. I've got the
you need one of those. You got it with the Japanese Senwood, that one. Except they've gone up in price so much.
Yeah, they've gone through the roof. Those
this
things.
Is like my buddy Pete Thorne. He bought one a few years ago, and it was only like $2,300 or something. And now they're $7,000.
Oh, really? Are they that much?
Yes.
Bernie Marsden, his auction's coming up in June, and there's one in that collection as well, and it's just that's going to go through the roof. But
there's something with that Explorer, though, those Ibanez Explorers with the Japanese Senwood. It's a different, not mahogany. It's different.
Yeah,
and there's a certain attack to those guitars, and it just sounds amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it was the old Ace Frehley Explorer, wasn't it? I think Ace's was one.
Well, those guitars were originally made by Bernie.
Yeah,
not Bernie. Fujijin Factory, who also made Bernie, who also made Greco.
Yeah.
And there's a Greco guitar that's also exactly the Ibanez guitar.
Yeah.
So
I've got 2 of those. I've got 2 Aria Pro 2s as well. I got a 1982 Aria that's bound and crowned that is easily as good as the Hamer. I mean, it's insane. But that again, it's still got the stickers on the DiMarzios actually.
Wow.
and it's the case is immaculate. So I don't use it, but I've got another one that's just got the dot markers that I've had refretted, and that thing plays like a beast. And it's such a block of wood as well. It's great.
Right.
Well, like you say, the old that model of Ibanez, it was a destroyer, wasn't it back then? I've got the 80s destroyers. I got 2 of the 80s destroyers, like the Adrian Smith ones, but they're not the red. I think his was the the DT 200 that he played over.
Yeah.
Mine's the 400 or 450 with the sunburst. But they're again great guitars. But the one that you're on about with the scratch plate and the natural finish, that's the one to get. Yeah. Still
it is.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to get one.
I know. There you go.
So are you a Les Paul
one
guy or a Super Strat guy?
I don't. I've got a couple of the Charbels that I really like, actually. I never really was a Strat guy until I was doing the some of the Priest stuff, and then I thought, I'll try a couple of Charbels. Really liked them. I've got the Hendrick, the battered looking one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Which is great. I always think these people are doing. The companies are doing too much relicing on these guitars. You'd never have a guitar that looked like it been dragged around like a car park like that. It'd always be a little bit, but not too. But the guitars are great. I love the way they play. And I got a 1992 Floyd Rose Strat in Birmingham the other week when we were playing in Birmingham. Just popped into a local store there, and that spoke to me off the wall.
Oh, a Floyd Rose branded Strat.
Yeah, just with humbuckers, and it just came back out the shop with me and came.
Is that the one that has
went home with you?
Sorry,
that's the one that has like a hump in the middle where like your finger, like.
No, that's the newer one.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's the newer one. Yeah.
This is
old.
It's sort of Dave Murray-ish. It's got 2 humbuckers of Floyd.
Oh, okay.
American Strat, but it plays great. And it just I just liked it because it was a good solid basic guitar really, and I wanted another Strat to play on stage, so I've got that one out with me as well. I'll tell you what else I've been using. I've got just an SG, I think it's an SG special that I put bare knuckle War Pig 90s in it because it had P90s, the original Gibson P90s, which really weren't really doing much for what we were doing, and the War Pig P90s, I think a 21K output on them. It's ridiculous.
Jeez.
Yeah, but it's the sound so aggressive. So I was using that for Saints in Hell, just to give it a bit of a different vibe. So that was fun.
Yeah, that sounds good.
We had
Tim Mills.
Tim from
It's great. Yeah,
great.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Steve Malt question: Andy, was there a moment when you realized your productions were a notch above the rest, and you were going to stay in recording business, or do you have any era of your career you're most proud of?
I never really do think, of myself as a notch above the rest. I mean, I know a lot of people like what I'm doing, but there's a lot of other good guys that are doing stuff out there, and I listen to other people and I think, oh, damn, sounds better. I always think there's some great people doing this work out there. Era of my career I'm most proud of. I mean, it was nice getting the Grammy for the last Dream Theater album. That sort of made my parents realise that I've actually got a proper job.
That'll do it.
Yeah. So yeah, little bits of recognition like that. Really, I mean, albums, getting number ones. Those sort of things are always nice. But I always just try and do my best for the band I'm working with, really. I always, because I came from the area of being a musician, I realise it's their money at the end of the day that's getting spent. I realise it's their pride and joy. I mean, it's mine as well, but I always try and realise what the band's after. I mean, they've obviously come to me for a certain approach and a certain sound, but I try and make it meet in the middle. I don't try and force opinions on the band. I try and focus what they're trying to do and bring it to fruition, really. So I don't think of anything I do as being a notch above anyone else. I just try and do my best for the band and try and make it work. That's your job as a producer, is to get everything in within budget, get it sounding great and get the songs focused really. So
the legend in it's a lesson in psychology.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
and it's a new lesson every experience.
You can't learn that off Instagram either. You know, all these like little courses you see popping up now of, you know, be a producer in 24 days, or you know, learn to mix this way. They don't teach you any of this. The whole thing of you know, recognizing the strengths within a band when you walk into a studio with a band and seeing the dynamic in a band and realizing, you know, there might be a bit of friction here and you might have to steer it this way a little bit and make it work. It's a major part of the job. It really is just keeping things calm and making everyone feel comfortable. You know, when that red light goes on, so to speak, it's just making sure that someone's in a comfortable place and, you know, you've got a good vibe going with them. It's a major part of the job. It's just
you're a psychologist. Yeah. You know, it's someone, a friend of mine. Well, Bob Rock's a friend of mine, and a friend of mine that works with him a lot said it's really interesting. Like, you'll see him in the studio, and when the sort of tension starts to build a little bit, or there's an uncomfortable situation, he'll just be like, let's go get a coffee. Let's go have a coffee, you know, and he de-escalates the situation, and like everyone goes, has a coffee and takes a break for a second.
Yeah.
Kind of comes back, but he knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
He goes, wait a minute, how am I going to get this to work here?
Yeah.
You know?
It really, I mean, you almost don't do it deliberately. You just sort of know when it's time to, you know, maybe change things up or get some, you know, just move it on to something else in the session. You just know when you're
like, he's done right now, so let's go take a break. Yeah. You can't. Yeah. Or in certain instances, maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you know that you have to push him.
Yeah.
And you got to push him harder until he almost wants to kill you.
Oh, Rob. I mean, Rob, by the end of the day, when we finish doing vocals with Rob, he hates me. And then he'll listen to what we've done and he'll be like, actually, that's really good, isn't it? I'm like, yeah, it is, you see. You know, it's like, yeah. I remember one of the first times I met Rob, he says, I am lazy. You've got to push me. I was like, all right, yeah, I'll remember that. And yeah, so he's always, why have I got to do it again? I'm like, just give me another take, just a little bit more breath in this one. You know, it's just, and I've always got a bit of a picture with Rob, what I'm trying to put together. And it's that sort of thing where we'll do sort of 7 or 8 takes, and we'll try a few different approaches on things. I'll put it together. We'll come back to it the next day. He'll hear it, and they say, "All right, I see what you're going after," you know. And it'll be, and then within 1 or 2 takes, he'll do something that's just phenomenal on it. So it's a little bit of that with the Priest thing. It's a little bit of that building the whole thing to a point where you know you've got it. You know, it's a good way of working it. But we'll always do little things like, you know, choruses will always be tracked up so we can split the harmonies away from the main vocal. So there's always an extra take. I don't like using effects. I'd rather him sing it twice and we get it.
Sure.
You know, it's a natural sort of spread on things so we can, you know, use the stereo field and just make things bigger at times, you know.
Yeah, that definitely works better than just doubling it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What's your favorite guitar tone of all time? And what's your favorite one that you've helped create?
Favorite guitar tone of all time?
That's a hard one, right?
Well, that is a hard one, isn't it?
Yeah. It's funny. It's probably something Bob's done, actually. I mean, you know, the Black Album, it sounds, actually, when you listen to the Black Album in isolation, when you hear the stems, it's a little strange at times. And actually, the bass tone really holds the whole thing together. But it works so well together, especially at that time, you know, in the early 90s. And I've not heard anything quite like it. I always think he gets such a killer tone, doesn't he? Favorite guitar tone of all time? I don't know. I can't.
It's so tough.
Yeah, it is tough. I don't know really. Best ones I've created. Again, I mean, I've done so many of them. I mean, people go on about the Nevermore stuff I did with Jeff, but it's quite dark actually when you listen back now. I don't know. I don't know.
That's a tough one.
Don't ask me that.
Yeah, it's so funny.
It's from day to day. It's subjective, isn't it? You know. Yeah.
You mentioned that black record, and so recently, One-on-One Studios, where that was recorded,
Yeah.
reopened as One-on-One Studios, and there's some new owners, and they've been kind of refurbishing and restoring, but keeping what needed to be kept. And I took Bob over there a month ago or something, and it's just like,
was that flashbacks? Like, you know?
yeah. He's like, wow, I haven't been here since then. In the end, he was like, oh, I want to come back and record something here again. You know, like, because the live room, the big room there is amazing. It's a big, huge room, and it's an amazing room, actually.
Didn't they dampen a load of it off in that session? Didn't they?
Yeah, they did. The room is interesting. Bob was telling me some stuff they did in that session, but there's a couple ISO rooms. There's a live ISO room and a dead ISO room, and then there's a massive big room, but there's these movable panels in there that can dampen the room down or not.
Yeah.
And you know, it's still there. It's an amazing place to record a great a whole band together, you know, like in a room, you know. An amazing place to do that. And I think Megadeth just went in there to do some drum stuff in that room. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
No, cool place.
Yeah,
absolutely.
They made an amazing the lounge, which was always there. And I when I first saw this room again, I hadn't been in there since like 1989 or 90 or 91 or somewhere around there. When I walked in, I'm like, Jesus, it's like walking back in time.
Yeah. They had all the panels on the walls and everything.
Yeah, there's an amazing lounge, and they really kind of updated the lounge a lot. They put in a whole proper bar in the lounge.
Right.
And you walk in, you're like, oh, that's great.
Yeah. It's funny with some of these old studios, isn't it? I was working at Hyde Street Studios, which used to be Alpha Omega in San Francisco 20 years ago. And even like I said about Fantasy Studios that was out in Berkeley.
Yeah.
In Oakland, wasn't it? Where was that? I think out there anyway. These studios, they were like a time capsule almost, weren't they? They got the old parquet flooring that was all worn out, and all these studios had a certain stale weed smell to them, didn't they? When you
yeah, for sure.
All that a little rough around the edges. Got an SSL that didn't quite work properly. Needs to be recapped.
Yeah, of course. Right. Exactly.
You know what channels not to use. Yeah.
Or you're sitting there banging on it.
Yeah.
Oh wait, there, it's working. Okay, wait, let's go.
Yeah, don't move. Yeah.
That's pretty normal, I think.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? The funny thing that Bob was saying, he goes, it's not the same as it used to be. It's like you go to a studio now and you're tracking at a studio. It's like before it was like they had a whole support staff.
Yeah.
That would, maintenance staff and maintenance tech that would, fix anything that went wrong in the studio right there on site.
Yeah.
There. And now there's none of that. And it's like, we have to call our guy and he's going to have to come in and it's going to be 3 days from now.
Yeah. I've got to send
it off. And it's like, well, I guess we're not using that part of the board.
Yeah.
or you bring your own people.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, no, I mean, like it just doesn't exist. The same kind of, in this day and age, this is why you have your own studio. You know, in this day and age, you can't count on these studios being in great shape anymore.
No, I mean, I remember Parr Street Studios in Liverpool, which was owned by Phil Collins Management, Amazon. There's an old guy that I think they kept in a closet up there. They used to just wheel him out whenever anything went wrong. You know,
yeah.
Mr. Coughlin, his name was, and he'd come out and he just knew everything. He could take an SSL apart, just anything that went wrong, he'd be on it. You know, in 2 hours. So yeah, all the major studios had a guy, didn't they?
They had a guy, and all those guys are either dead now or have moved on, or they can't afford to keep them.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely a specialized skill, right? So
specialized skill that's not really used anymore because half of these studios now they use 2 channels of the board, and that's it.
Yeah,
they're doing a hip hop record, and it's just coming off the laptop into the board, and that's it.
The biggest talkback you'll ever see, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I don't why they're in the studio like there. I'm not sure. They can do that at home, but
but they want to be seen with a desk, don't they? So
I guess no real need.
It looks good for Instagram.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think we've gone through all the questions. I think we've had a great discussion with you, Andy.
Cool.
You know? It's been almost 2 hours. It flew by.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on. I really do. And it was awesome to have you on.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
How long are you guys? I asked you this offline, but you guys are going to be on tour for a while, right? So
this run. Let's think about this. We finish 24th of where are we now? May 24th of May. We finish in the States. Fly home for literally 2 or 3 days, then we're back out to Europe for festivals through until 24th of July. I think we finish in Turkey. Then I've got a month off where I mix the project that you nearly mentioned, 2025 as well. So yeah, it's that's the way it's looking. It's mainly live stuff for the moment.
Awesome.
Right.
Well, I'm looking forward to having you guys come back to the States, and because this past time you didn't come to the South Florida area.
No. I mean, I think we've got what we're doing. We're doing Daytona, aren't we? Which probably isn't down where
you're at. That Rockville. You're doing that
out in a week or so. Quite excited because we're playing Motley Crue, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big audience. I mean,
is Kerry King on that one as well? I know we're doing one of them with Kerry as well. Don't know if he's on that one or the other festival we're doing, but it's I'm quite looking forward to seeing his new band, seeing how that shapes up. So
cool. Well, awesome. Well, it was really a pleasure to meet you, Andy. Have you on? Love the work that you do, and you're doing great stuff. And
thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Love the stuff that you do. So, thank you for coming on. And guys, our next guest is. I'm going to give a drum roll because I have one guy who's been asking me literally every show for the past probably 4 years. He's asked every show. He writes on every show, when is this person going to be on? And finally, he's coming on. Jim Root is coming on from Slipknot. So he will be on next Friday night. So,
we've been trying for a long time. We were playing catch up.
Email tags.
Like, I'm busy. I'm out, or I'm not, or don't answer the email, or
it's that thing of schedules, isn't it? I mean, we've all got the little windows, I mean,
that's fine. We're flexible generally.
Oh yeah. It's just a matter of
we caught him just at the right time.
I just need to remember, like, because someone mentioned him to me.
Yeah.
They're like, no, you need to have Jim. I'm like, I
got to follow up with him.
I need to send another email to him. I hadn't heard back from him. So so Jim's coming on. We got one question that just popped in right before we head out. Z's guitar account. What's going on, Z? Andy, how do you and Frederick? How do guys like you and Frederick make metal albums sound so awesome? I feel like they're always a step above what we do here in the States.
I mean, we just do our thing. I always liken it to tuning an instrument. Almost, you sort of hear it in your head.
It's in your head, right?
I mean, I'm self-taught with all of this. I've made mistakes along the way, and just found out how things work, and turn knobs and plug gear in, and found things I've liked, and it's just been a love of making albums, and growing up listening to this sort of music and trying to figure out what people were doing, and it's given me. I think it's giving me my own identity in what I do, because it's you know, you learn the way that the equipment works for you, really. Same as a player as well. That, you know, just because someone else plays this rig doesn't mean it's going to work for you. You've got to find.
Oh, definitely not.
You know, you know what it's like, David. I mean, it's you're amplifying these at the end of the day, aren't you?
Yeah. And I have literally had people. I've said this a million times.
Yeah.
I've had people come in, play through something I know sounds great,
and it sounds shocking. Yeah.
And you listen to them play through it, and you're like, did it break?
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't sound. It sounds broken.
Yeah. It's amazing.
I'm like, how did you do that? I'm not sure how. I don't understand. Yeah.
No, I mean, the amount of times I'm in the studio with guitarists and I'm looking at the hands going, what is going on there? You know, it's, you know, I mean, it's, you know, it's the position of the hand, you know, how hard you're hitting it, the pick you're using. It's just every little nuance is what's amplified at the end of the day. And it's the same with equipment, you know, with what I do mixing wise. It's what works for me. It's how I hear it. It's how I hear things fitting together. And, you know, you can have all my settings, you can have all my plugins. It's not going to work. It's not going to work for anyone else, I don't think. You know, it might get you 70% close, or you might learn something from it, but it's how you mentally picture the band in your head. You know, I always try and visualize the band playing when I'm mixing, and, you know, sort of shut my eyes and sort of, does that sound like the kit? You know, is anything getting lost there? And I've almost got a checklist in my head of what I'm listening to. You know, are the cymbals that, you know, I mean, it's that thing. So many albums I hear now where the cymbals aren't loud enough, because it's you stand in a room with a drum kit, the first thing that will kill you is the cymbals, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, take your head off.
And the cymbals add excitement to the music.
You listen to those Van Halen albums with was it Ted Templeman did?
Yeah,
the cymbals are so loud on them, and it's the energy, it's the dynamic of the kit, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. Well, like I said, it adds excitement, just like when you add, you know, when you add distortion to something, or you know, that isn't normally distorted. Like you add distortion to a acoustic guitar or something.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
You don't actually hear it in the track, but it adds to the excitement of what you're hearing overall, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and the cymbals are for like an exclamation, you know.
Yeah.
It can't be too loud, but you know, but also on tape it was easier with the cymbals.
It definitely was, yeah, because like I said earlier, it just brought it all in, didn't it?
Yeah. It's just you got little issues with the digital with the cymbals, but
you know, there's plenty of good tape sims out there that'll sort of do a similar thing for you now, you know. So
yeah.
But it really is. I think with any good producer, I think they've got a vision in their heads of how they hear it, and that's what gives you your, you know. And we've all grown up with this gear and sort of created these things, these little tricks that we do, and it's that gives it the character and I guess what people like. When you get all these people saying, "Oh, it's got that Andy Sneap sound," or "all my mixes sound the same," that's a good one. And of course they do. I think what they're hearing is the character that I hear. You know, obviously sonically they're not identical, but the albums I've just done, you know, Priest, Sax, and Accept, I use different approaches on all three albums, but they've all got my feel to it in a way, because it's how I hear it. You know,
it's your ear.
I can't mix it to feel. If someone comes to me with an album that's mixed by, you know, I don't know, just, you know, someone else, I can't go and I'm not going to go and copy that, because it's not how I'm hearing it. It's not from the heart. And I think you mix it how you hear it, and it's you do a good mix because you're enjoying it, and it's a performance at the end of the day. So same as, you know, you play a song well that you enjoy, because you're feeling it, and you when you mix a song, you vibe off it, and you're a bit more of that, and you get in there a bit more. It's just the way it works. It's the way it works for me.
Yeah, you're paying. Someone's paying you for your thing. They're paying you for your ears, your set of ears. Just like they're paying me for my set of ears if I'm making them an amplifier or something, or it's that's what it's all about. Yeah, of course. Guess what? Yeah, they're all gonna have a little similar sound, just like most of Bob Rock's stuff, just like most of Brendan O'Brien's stuff, just like most of named producer
Bob's a great,
Lang.
Yeah, Bob's a great example because you could put any album he's done on, I think, and I guess it was him that had done it because it's got a certain thump to it, it's got a certain character to it. But I think what he brings to the table as far as the songwriting as well, and focusing the record, it's brilliant. So it's that's what you want out of a producer, isn't it? You want someone that
has a sound.
Yeah.
That's what they're hiring you for.
Yeah.
They like your body of work. They're hiring you to do what you do.
Yeah. So,
did you hear I was literally just watching the clip recently of Bob Rock when he was on our show, and he told that story about how he produced Kingdom Come.
Yeah.
And did you see that, Andy?
No.
So he's telling us a story how he produced Kingdom Come, and of course Kingdom Come wanted the sound. They wanted to basically replicate Zeppelin's sound. Bob did his very best to really get a very Zeppelin-y vibe on the album. And so anyway, I think a years later, he's out to dinner with an A&R guy and John Paul Jones. And they're hanging out, and he goes, and they go back to the A&R guy's house, and they're having some bottles of wine, and it comes out that Bob produced Kingdom Come, and then John Paul Jones just started ragging on him, and he said that he had to leave. He had to leave the place because John Paul Jones was just, I guess, ripping on him for
steps off him.
Yeah.
Because I was hired to do that.
Yeah. He's like, you don't get it. It was an homage to you guys. We love you. Oh, that clip just kills me. I was like, that's such a funny story.
Yeah, brilliant.
Man. Well, anyway, Andy, thanks so much. I wish you all the best on the tour coming up and all the future work that you're doing. I hope to see you guys on tour coming up soon. And again, thanks for agreeing to come on the show. It's awesome to have you.
No problem. This was fun. Yeah,
excellent. Guys, check us out next week, same time, 8:00 next week on Friday with Jim Root. And then check out our affiliates, our links below, and we'll catch you soon. Oh, and hit subscribe. How about that? Hit subscribe. All right. Have a great weekend,
guys. I'm sure there's lots of people watching.
So, all right. And Andy, hang on while we say goodbye.
Yeah.
Take care, everybody.